Welcome back to Acing AP Biology. In this lesson, as we continue to dive deep into genetics, we will be going over different inheritance patterns. Complete dominance occurs when one allele is dominant and one allele is recessive for a certain trait. As we discussed in the last video, the color of the flowers in Mendel's experiments was passed down through complete dominance because there were two alleles, purple, which is dominant, and white, which is recessive. With the heterozygous genotype, the purple color was expressed, indicating complete dominance. In incomplete dominance, one allele is not fully dominant over the other, so the heterozygous genotype has a phenotype that is the mix of the two parent phenotypes. For instance, snapdragons demonstrate incomplete dominance for color. The homozygous dominant genotype is red, the homozygous recessive is white, and the heterozygous is pink, a mix of red and white. Moreover, from the phenotype, you can derive the genotype in the pattern of incomplete dominance. In codominance, both alleles are expressed equally. For instance, the heterozygous genotype for roan cattle hair expresses an even amount of red and white fur. Multiple alleles is a pattern of inheritance that includes more than just two different forms of a gene. A good example of multiple alleles is ABO blood types. For a blood type, there are three alleles that code for the carbohydrate on the surface of the red blood cell, known as an antigen, either IA, IB, or I. There are four different phenotypes: Group A, Group B, Group AB, and Group O. Group A can either be homozygous dominant for IA or heterozygous, IA lowercase I, demonstrating complete dominance. Group B can be IB, IB, again homozygous dominant, or heterozygous, IB and I, again demonstrating complete dominance. Group AB can only have the genotype of IA and IB, demonstrating codominance because each allele is expressed equally. And Group O can only be lowercase I, homozygous recessive. For pleiotropy, one gene can have multiple effects with respect to phenotype. For instance, in the disease sickle cell anemia, one gene mutation leads to a change in shape in red blood cells, which has a wide range of deleterious effects in the body. In polygenic inheritance, two or more genes have an additive effect on a phenotypic trait. Remember that poly means many, so many genes, so it's sort of the opposite of pleiotropy. Quantitative characters are factors that vary in degree over a continuous distribution, rather than being a distinct either-or trait. Examples are skin color, hair color, eye color, because these traits vary in degree. As you can see here, many genes affect this phenotypic trait, and this quantitative character varies on a continuous distribution, from lightest to moderate to darkest. Usually, the heterozygous form is the most common. Epistasis occurs due to the interaction between two non-allelic genes, one of which changes the phenotypic expression of the other. In other words, one gene determines whether another gene is expressed. In mice, the gene that determines if pigment can be deposited regulates whether the gene controlling pigment production is expressed. For gene 1, black fur is dominant to brown fur, and for gene 2, pigment is dominant to no pigment. Gene 2 is epistatic to gene 1 because it regulates its expression. After the dihybrid cross, there are 9 black, 3 brown, and 4 albino because pigment wasn't deposited. So the phenotypic ratio is 9:3:4. And lastly, the environment affects the phenotype. The norm of reaction is the range of phenotypes for a single genotype that varies according to environmental circumstance. For instance, blood cell count changes when the environment changes. At higher altitudes, red blood cell count increases because the air is thinner, so there is less oxygen available. Multifactorial traits are polygenic characteristics that rely on several factors, a mixture of both genotype and the environment. That's it for this lesson. In the next video, we will continue our discussion of genetics. See you then. For more bio content, hit subscribe.